an overview of the graph page. If you're viewing on mobile, it will look more like this, or on the desktop, it will look like this. Okay, so this is a typical graph, and on here, I'll start with a red line. The red line is the function that the thermostat is currently in, which is set on usually on the home page. You read this line off the right hand side. So, my HMO, the thermostat, is in auto mode. And the tenants can boost the heating using the boost button, and when they boost it, the red line goes up to the top, which is boost mode. The blue line is the temperature that the thermostat is measuring, so that is the house temperature. The grey line is the target temperature, so this is usually what is set on the Schedules tab. When the system goes into boost, this will change to the boost temperature, which on mine is set up to be 22 degrees. The orange background is when the system is asking the boiler for heat. And as you can see, when the system asks the boiler for heat, the room temperature starts climbing, as you would expect. So when the target is above the room temperature, usually, the system will be asking for heat. When the target drops below the room temperature, the boiler will switch off. If you have our optional smart sensors, they also measure temperature. So you can enable the smart sensors down here. So if I switch on sensor downstairs, you'll see I get an extra temperature line, and that is the temperature measured by the smart sensor, which is in a different room to the thermostat. And you can see what the different coloured lines mean by reading off this key here. If you have smart sensors, you will see this box here. And the smart sensors also measure humidity. So you can switch to show temperature, humidity, or both. So if I switch to humidity, for example, here you can see the humidity of the smart sensor. So on this system, the humidity seems to be varying between around about 40 to 50%, which is absolutely fine. When it goes above 70, that's when you may wish to investigate. So let's go back to temperature. And then you can also have here, if you've got extra sensors, you can show the average temperature, which again will add an additional line. But sometimes this graph can get a bit messy, so you can switch various things off. So for example, we can switch off the average, and maybe you're not fussed because your thermostat is in auto mode, you're not fussed about the red line, so again you can turn that one off as well. And if you're not interested in the boiler run times, for example, switch that off just to clean the graph up. And again, you may not want to waste either time. There you go. So that's a nice clean graph. Target temperature, room temperature. Okay, let's set that back to the standard, which is there. Okay, so this is showing what's been happening on the system over the last 24 hours. You may wish to see over a longer period of time, in which case you can change it here. So let's say we are interested in what's happened over the last week. So we can click that, and that will show you what's happened in the last week. And when these red lines gone up, that's effectively when the boost button has been pressed. If you see something and you're not sure what's happening at a particular point, you can click and hold the mouse. So for example, if I go here, click and hold the mouse left button, and then drag a window, and then release, it will zoom in on that period so I can see further details of what's been happening. If I want to zoom back out so I can see the whole graph range again, I click reset zoom. If, and this is completely optional, most people won't want to do this, but if you want to export the graph data, you may do so down here. So you can export temperature, the function line, the target temperature, or the call for heat functions. You can export each one individually, and you can also export sensor data. This will export it in a CSV file, which you will then import into Excel if you want to create, for example, management reports. Oh, and finally, we have statistics here. And this will just give you some statistics of what's happened on your system. So, for example, highest temperature recorded was 22.5 degrees. The lowest temperature it went down to is 14.5. The highest target temperature or set point is 22 degrees. The lowest target temperature was 15 degrees. And the amount of time the boiler has been running for is 2 days, 1 hour over the last week, which, considering at time of recording it is extremely cold outside, that's probably perfectly reasonable. And again, you've got highest and lowest humidity. And this statistics is based on what this is set to. So, if we change it to the last 30 days, for example, that's the last month, and here's just showing it for the last 30 days.